Satellite Friendships podcast with Annie and Gail, where we talk about our thoughts and feelings because it's healthy. And with us today is a friend of mine named Rach. Rach will share her experiences with therapy. So if you've ever been curious or interested in therapy, this is the episode for you. So before we get into all that, Rach, can you share kung paano tayo naging satellite friends? Or paano tayo naging friends?
Oh, sa Tinder. Ay, Tinder ba yun? Okay.
Hindi, okay siya.
Sa okay Cupid. Tapos, nakasulat kasi sa profile mo, may call out ka for looking for INFJs. Ikaw nga, ano ba yung nakasulat sa profile mo?
Sabi ko ENFP ako. Tapos, ang gusto ko ma-meet mga introverts. Tapos, specifically mga INFJ. Tapos, I know that you're lurking out there with all your feelings.
Oo, tapos natamaan ako nung nabasa ko parang, he's talking to me. He's speaking
felt
to me.
seen.
Exactly. Effective naman, di ba? Ako naman, nag-message. Hello. Ayun, ewan ko, medyo nag-click naman yata tayo sa chat. I felt.
I felt like really parang, I felt you were a safe person to talk to and parang I felt like marami naman tayo mapag-uusapan, ganyan.
Oo, parang hindi tayo naubusan mo yun ang mga pag-uusapan. Tsaka
yes.
Do you remember we decided early on na hindi tayo maglalandian. Friends lang tayo.
Oh, interesting.
Ayun. Kaya parang, for me, I liked it because it was very clear from early on na, okay, friends. Malinaw, tas okay naman.
It's really nice.
Ayun.
I think communication is key. Right? You establish the expectations from the onset.
Talaga. I like it when things are unclear and muddled and there's confusion. Joke lang.
I knew you were gonna say that, by the way.
Gusto ko kayo mga INFJ kasi seryoso kayo sa labas. Pero parang evil sense of humor ganyan.
Ayun, so that's how we became friends before the pandemic.
Okay. So I'm curious because you said earlier na you feel like you can talk about anything. How did the topic of therapy come up in your conversations?
I can't quite remember. Paano nga ba, Gail?
Ako rin eh. Pero feeling ko naman you're generally open about you having therapy. Ganun.
Yeah. And I think I generally advocate. I guess I'm a bit of an advocate na din na, na mag-therapy. Mag-therapy kayo lahat. Charot.
Oh my God, I love you. Gusto na kita.
Bakit? Ba't mo nasabi yun?
It's very encouraging to hear that kasi from other people because it's true that it's not a topic that would normally come up. I think in my personal experience, it's only something that I've started to talk to people about, particularly during the pandemic.
Mm-hmm. And actually, that makes sense kasi lalo na kanya-kwento ng therapist ko na especially during the pandemic, talagang dumami yung clients niya. I think it was easier for people to talk about therapy in relation to the pandemic kasi hindi siya parang nakakayang pag-usapan. It's something everyone's going through. It's not something stigmatic kasi lahat naman tayo nahirapan ng pandemic. So, yeah, but it's very normal that mas naging mainstream yata siya during the pandemic. Nakatulong siya. And I guess I don't know, you were saying, you mentioned na there's some hesitation about talking about therapy ba or something. And I think it's, especially for older generations, no, hindi pa sa kanila uso yung therapy. It's such a, for them, pag nag-therapy ka, parang may problema ka ba? Or may topa ka ba or something? Kailangan mo mag-therapy. In fact, even some of my doctor friends, I have a few friends na doctor na nag-therapy din. They don't like people knowing na nag-therapy sila kasi baka may impact yung ano nila profession. I think it's maybe because they're in the medical profession and I don't know.
Right. Yeah, there's this fear that if you're doing therapy, like you're not capable mentally to handle the job, which is not really the case, right? Also, I heard din kasi like from somebody before, ba't ka pa mag-therapy, magbabayad ka pa, kausapin mo na lang yung kaibigan mo, ganyan. May ganon.
So I guess, it's becoming mainstream but not quite there yet, no?
Ako, I agree na parang the pandemic has kind of helped yung pag-mainstream ng idea of mental health and therapy along. But I agree then it's not quite there yet. Meron pa ring a little bit of stigma attached to the idea. Yeah. So I'm curious, parang how did you get started on this path of getting therapy?
Well, ako kasi, nung around 2012 or 2013, medyo nagka-watak-watak yung family ko. So, I got really depressed at the time to the point na I had a hard time managing already. So, medyo alam kong kailangan ko na ng help. Kumbaga, parang nag-rock bottom na talaga ako. So, luckily enough, meron akong isang friend na yung older cousin niya nag-attend siya ng counseling school. Tapos, nirefer niya sa akin yung therapist ko ngayon. So, yun yung background kung paano ako nag-start sa therapy.
How old were you in 2012?
Minus 9. 34 minus 9.
25.
25.
And you mentioned hitting rock bottom. Okay lang ba if ikwento mo parang what that looked like for you, yung rock bottom? If it's okay lang.
Yeah. For me, rock bottom was, umiyak ako every day. Tapos, like 3 hours straight, di na ako pumipigil sa pag-iyak. Like every day.
Whoa,
So,
okay.
3 or 5 hours, couldn't stop crying anymore. So, I knew I needed help. And actually, sabi ng therapist ko, it's actually normal na people usually come to her only when they hit rock bottom. Parang it's not so normal for people to go to therapy pag okay pa sila. Parang usually pag umabot na sila sa point na hindi na sila maka-function sa job or sa life or something, sa family, and then that's the only time that they seek therapy. So I guess, yeah, I fit into that normal criteria.
That's interesting. Is it okay to ask like what your doctor said about being proactive about getting therapy? Like, what would be the benefits or what's the importance of getting therapy even before like you feel like you've hit rock bottom?
But I guess para hindi ka mag-hit ng rock bottom, I suppose. Diba? Kasi sana hindi na ako umabot sa point na yun. But wala nung time na yun, I don't think therapy was that well known as an option, or hindi pa siya uso, no? Kailan ba siya naging uso?
Parang
what year?
Recently lang din. And also, I feel like there's a shortage of psychiatrists or specialists in the country, right? Parang out of like 100, parang isa lang or...
Yeah, that's true. I think it's even bigger pa nga eh. Like 1,000.
Yeah, 1,000,
Isa
yeah.
lang.
So it's not easily accessible.
Yeah. It's also not easy to find a good therapist, even within the therapist pool. Kasi parang, we can talk about that. Parang, first, you have to find someone that you feel comfortable with. And that's not always, I mean, kahit sa friendship pa lang, di ba, hirap na maghanap ng gano'n. So, pati sa therapist, finding someone who's a good fit for you is important.
Yeah. I agree with that kasi that reminds me of yung I went for my first therapy session mga 7 years ago. Tapos tapos masasabi ko na hindi siya good fit. Kasi nagkukwento ako naalala ko nagkukwento ako tapos parang umiiyak-iyak pa. Tapos tapos nakita ko siya yung office kasi niya parang parang bahay na rin yung office niya. She's very at home there, feeling ko. Tapos nakita ko siya, nakaupo siya sa upuan niya, tapos parang kinakalikot niya yung paa niya. Parang tangina to. So yun, hindi na bumalik sa kanya.
Binabayad ko.
May take siya.
Mahal. Tapos nagpukwento ako ng mga yung mga very emotional na bagay sa akin. Tapos kinakalikot niya yung paa niya. So yun, anyway. Hindi na rin ako naghanap ng iba kasi I found the prohibitive for me yung expense niya. Yung gastos niya. Ganun. So sorry, go on. Ano yung sinasabi mo kanina, Rach?
I was just gonna ask, did you go to therapy at the time because nag-rock bottom ka rin?
Yeah, what was your reason and how long ago was that? And
sorry.
Go on. Sige, magkwento.
Mga 7 years ago, so mga 2014 or siguro 2015. I wouldn't say na I hit rock bottom. But I went then with the encouragement of the person I was seeing at the time. Kasi kinukwento ko sa kanya prior to me meeting her, I had a relationship na I would classify as abusive, ganyan. Tapos I guess she felt na I was still affected nung abusive na relationship na yan. And I'd say tama naman siya. So I was open to the idea and booked that first session. Na hindi na naulit. Yun.
So
so I went basically kasi I was able to and I had the time, I was curious then.
It wasn't a good experience, but did you at least learn from it or benefit from it? Like kahit pa paano?
Parang hindi. Kasi pag mag-oo yan kagad eh.
Yeah, like what was the advice? Like ano yung next step? Ano yung...
ang sabi ko kasi parang kinano ko kasi I was a film student and I dropped out and then I went into the call center industry. Ang interpretation niya from all that was I neglected this whole other artistic or creative side of myself. And I don't know. I think there's some truth to that, pero I don't think that's the whole that's the whole truth. And it felt like parang a stereotypical interpretation of my experience. And plus siguro she just didn't seem like parang competent enough for me.
Yeah, I find it very surprising. Like I would expect that the person would have like probed further into figuring out what is the root cause as to like why you may have neglected nga your creativity.
So you guys touched on a few things that are actually medyo common na narinig ko sa mga ibang friends ko na unsuccessful din yung attempt na therapy. Yung number one, they try to box you in right away. Like, ganito ka. Ito yung disorder mo or feeling ko, ito yung meron ka. Parang it's too early to tell. You don't really want that box on the first session at least. tama yung sinabi ni Ana na dapat sa first session medyo probing, kind of getting your background, kind of understanding the whole picture. Kasi hindi naman, you can have a hunch. A therapist can usually have a hunch as to what you might be facing. Pero, nagigets ko yung parang kung mababox ka kaagad. Parang, oo. Tsaka pangalawa, sobrang important sa therapist na marunong sila makinig. You should really feel heard. I think for me, that's one of the most important qualities if you're going to look for a therapist na yung listening kasi there are a lot of layers to it eh. There's listening on the surface and then there's listening on a deeper level, yung reading between the lines. So, and I think it's both a gift and a skill. Like not all people have it, and so it's important to find someone who you really feel is capable of listening to you. Because if they can't listen to you, no, paano na? Parang yun yung basis for everything. So yun.
So how was it like in your first session? Like what made you feel comfortable and what convinced you to continue with the therapy, and what was the advice for you?
I think I got very lucky kasi I really clicked with my therapist from right away. Alam kong parang she knows what she's doing, she's very experienced. She's a lot older than me also, so that helped. Kasi 'di ba pag masyadong bata, like fresh grad, minsan isa pa yun, parang kulang ng experience pag masyadong bata. Sorry, what was your question? What made me feel ano? Oh, because before I went to therapy, nag-try muna yung family ko ng pumunta sa church. Hindi ko lang i-mention what church this is, but it's a very popular and big church. And we met with one of the higher ups in that church. And we sat down at one of their offices and then we told them our story and ito yung problems, ito yung pinagdaanan ng family namin. And siguro kunento namin for like 1 hour. At the end of the hour, sinabi lang ng pastor, pray. That's it. Just pray. And, I know, okay, there is a time and a place for prayer. But sometimes we need more than that. We need something more concrete. Especially pag sobrang lalim na ng problem. You need some more concrete steps. Like, paano ba to i-solve? Ang kwento pa ng pastor nung time na yun is, kinukwento niya yung sarili niyang experience, how before he was a very angry person, ganito, ganyan. And then, bigla na lang one day nag-pray siya and then miraculously, nawala lahat ng galit niya and everything. And, I'm happy that works for you, but it's just, I needed something more than that at the time, and it really wasn't helpful for our family. So, ano pa ba? I think I also attended a retreat hosted by another popular religious parang counseling ministry siya. So it was a retreat, so there was a lot of people. Marami kaming, iba-iba kaming tao, like may domestic violence survivors, may mga drug addict and stuff like that. And I don't know, yung nag-facilitate ng retreat was the head of that ministry, yung head mismo. And I just felt at the time na she didn't know how to listen. Like some of my fellow participants, like a drug addict would ask like a question, how do you deal with this? And she would just shoot the question down, na parang mamaya ka na. And I was like, ano? So it was weird.
Holy shit.
Yeah. And at this time, I was already starting my therapy. So I had a point of comparison na doon ko na-realize, sobrang galing makinig ng therapist ko. May comparison kasi, So I guess, doon ko nalaman na parang okay itong pinupuntahan ko. Tapos swerte lang din ako kasi first try. okay na yung nakuha ko. So, and then, Anna, what was your other question? What was her advice ba?
Yeah, what was her advice and what convinced you to keep going to therapy? Like, what's the difference between like therapy and not having therapy?
Okay. Well, in my case, I guess my family situation was really dysfunctional. So, akala ko nung una akong nag-therapy, I thought to myself, max 1 month lang to. Tapos, nung nag 1 month, sige, max 6 months lang to. Sure. Tapos na ako ng 6 months. Nung nag 6 months, max 1 year lang to. Yun na yun, sure. And then it just like, kept going and going. And I guess, for me, a common misconception of therapy is parang mabilis mo siya masasolve. But one way I like to relate therapy to is when you want to lose weight, which is one of your previous podcast episodes.
Yeah.
You don't expect to have it to lose weight in one session, di ba? Kasi how did you get to that point? It took a while din, di ba? Maraming unhealthy habits na na-form, unhealthy eating or sleeping or whatever, non-exercising habits. So, ganun din with when you come to therapy, usually the problem that you bring to a session, it didn't just happen overnight. Sometimes it happened over decades. So, how can you expect na masasolve mo siya on just 6 sessions when it's already like a habitual pattern of thinking or chronic anxiety. So, I guess that's one of the main things that I wish people knew about therapy. It's not a quick fix. It could help alleviate your symptoms fast, but if you want to deal with like the deeper issues, it's gonna take some time.
How would like a therapist or you determine if you've healed or not? Like, are there KPIs? Like, kasi, diba, if you go to a doctor, like, for skin problems, for example, like, ang basis mo is, okay, wala na akong acne, nabawasan na. So, what are the, like, indicators naman when it comes to mental health? Like, how do you know you're improving?
I think it depends on, first of all, what did you come to therapy for? So, is it to manage your anxiety? So, if you came to therapy to manage your anxiety, tapos feeling mo mas na-manage mo siya, it also depends on the goals that you set for yourself. But a good therapist would also help you manage your emotions better. I think that's something that that's medyo general, no? Kahit anong problem mo. You feel like you're managing better. For example, depressed ka today, you know how to cope with it. Hindi ka nalulunod sa depression mo.
Mm-hmm.
Parang alam mo na paano mag-cope. What else? I guess another thing would be you're kinder to yourself. Your self-talk is not as harsh anymore. When you make mistakes or when you're having a bad day, nakakatch mo yung thoughts mo kasi parang you had this model in therapy of how a compassionate voice sounds like and parang na-adapt mo siya over time. So, yun, I guess yun yung dalawang example na naisip ko na parang milestone na naging effective yung therapy mo.
Yung therapy mo ba, is that like mostly cognitive behavior or like were you also taking medication? Like how did your therapist did he or she diagnose like your condition? Like are there certain tests that you take?
I think for my case, since medyo clear na family trauma yung source of distress ko, my therapist, by the way, is a psychotherapist. Hindi siya psychiatrist or psychologist. So she doesn't prescribe meds. She's not trained to prescribe meds, but she has a partner. She can refer you rather to someone who can prescribe you meds if she feels you might need. But yeah, in my case, since very clear na may family trauma, Hindi niya ako prescribe ng meds, and I also prefer it that way. For myself, I don't have any judgment if you're taking meds, but at least, kasi sa case ko, alam kong talagang, yun, family trauma. So, Tapos, ayun, you mentioned cognitive behavioral therapy. Where do you hear that from, by the way?
Yeah, I think I just picked that up from my research. Because I read a lot about therapy and options.
Talaga, balikan natin yan mamaya pa. Like, why do you read about therapy? But let me just answer your question. So cognitive behavioral therapy, siya? For example, let's use an example. When I get sick before, when I used to get sick, nalulunod ako sa depression, and I can't get myself to seek help. Alright, may fever ako, ganyan. And then, so pag cognitive behavioral therapy yung approach ng therapist, ang gagawin niya is, i-explore niya yung thoughts mo. For example, observe your thoughts when you're getting sick. Ano yung na-observe mong lumalabas sa isip mo. So in my case, I started observing. I was sick one time. I started observing, and I was lying down on bed, and I suddenly heard myself say, parang, you're so disgusting. Like, why can't you, like, why are you sick? Parang narinig ko yung linya na yun pumasok sa isip ko. So sabi ko, shit. Ay, bakit yun yung naisip ko? So, pag cognitive behavioral therapist, I'm not sure, by the way, kasi hindi masyadong CBT yung therapist ko. But from what I understand, they want you to be aware of your thoughts, and then isa-substitute mo siya with healthier messages. So, ilalaban mo siya. For example, I'm not disgusting. Getting sick is normal. There's nothing wrong with getting sick. Everyone gets sick. It just means your body needs to rest. So, yun yung cognitive behavioral, meaning cognition, thinking, thoughts, and being aware of them and substituting them for more positive thought. I think that's how it works. But the therapy that I went through, which is psychotherapy, it goes a bit deeper. In-explore ng therapist ko, like, saan ba nanggaling yung thought na to? Like, bakit mo yun iniisip tuwing nagkakasakit ka?
Mm-hmm.
So, in-explore siya ng therapist ko. I brought it up. In-explore ng therapist ko. We talked about it. And then it turns out, I remember that when I was younger, kasi my mom was very harsh on me when I got sick. So, she would always get mad at me.
That's a common thing, Just saying.
It is? Is it? I don't know.
Yung nanay ko din ganyan eh. Yeah.
But my mom would get really mad to the point na before she would help me, she would always make me cry. Like, paiyakin niya muna ako bago niya ako bibigyan ng gamot. And she would always blame me for getting sick. Yan kasi labas with itong friend na to na ayaw niya or whatever. Ganito, ganyan, hindi ka na ganyan. So, but I guess it is a bit common, no? Ano bang usual na sinasabi ng mga parents pag nagkakasakit? Like, paano ba yung mommy mo?
Parang ganyan, like galit, instead of being, parang yung galit nga. Yeah, or like, kunwari, if you get into an accident, like, it's your fault that you got into an accident, so instead of trying, yung immediate response is ideally, I mean, dapat is you comfort the person. Pero, ang nangyayari is, ikaw na nga yung nasaktan, tapos papagalitan ka pa for it. But it's not your fault, right? Because it's not like you did that intentionally, right? So, parang, ganun sila. Like, I just realized it lang din na, oo nga, no? Bakit? Kasi we learned first aid, right? Gail sa AMC. And in first aid, they always tell you, like, parang part of the treatment is to comfort and reassure the person. Parang you don't want people to panic, right? Kasi it doesn't help the situation. So, it made me wonder, bakit yung mga parents, or minsan, like, nagagalit sila, like,
Tsaka parang normal lang naman na minsan wala, madapa ka or, di ba, or matapilok ka or whatever. Parang tao ka lang na naglalaro.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know, maybe it's their generation. Like, I don't know nga why ganun sila mag-isip.
But you know what helped me see also that it wasn't normal? I have a close friend of mine who, I observed her when she gets sick. Walang, walang issue. Parang, okay, inom ka lang ng gamot. That's it. Magpahinga ka lang, mag-inom ka ng gamot. That's it. Wala nang masyadong sat-sat yung parents niya, ganon. And so, therefore, pag nagkakasakit siya, it's really not a big deal for her. She's like, okay, I'm just gonna drink medicine and sleep today and then tomorrow okay na ako. Whereas sa akin, pag nagkakasakit ako, parang may nagbabattle pa ako ng maraming other things like anxiety and depression and kasalanan ko to and all these kinds of things. So, going back lang, so yung approach ng psychotherapy is tinitrace niya talaga kung saan ba galing yung message, and then pag na-identify mo na saan nanggaling yung message, parang may process yun Gi-grieve mo na, I didn't really have the most compassionate parent, and then you're going to counter the message also. You're going to talk to that inner voice that's criticizing you. You're not disgusting. You're normal, and it wasn't right that you were made to cry before you were given help when you were younger. And so, there's a grieving and a bit of an angering process to really get to the bottom of the issue. And then, when you do that often enough, it takes time, diba? Hindi naman ganun kaagad-agad nakukuha mo siya. But after a while, ayun, when I get sick now, it's not so bad anymore. Inom na lang ako ng gamot or whatever, punta lang ako sa doctor. It's not such an ordeal anymore.
So, yung tipong you're sick na nga tapos you have to deal with like your thoughts pa. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, oo. Parang, physically sick ka na. Namin pang ibabattle na, emotional and other demons.
Correct. Rach, how often do you go in for yung therapy session?
Yung therapist ko, ang nire-recommend niya once a week. Because I guess you can think of it like weight loss din, na parang kailangan medyo regular din kasi kung hindi pwede kang mag-regress pag more than once a week, pag 2 weeks, parang napapansin daw ng therapist ko na there's a lot of time to revert back to your old ways, whereas pag once a week mas mas magpo-progress, mas mabilis kang mag-progress.
So parang since 2012, you've been coming in once a week until ngayon, tama ba?
Yeah, but I just want to say you don't have to go to therapy for that long. I know that's ang tagal nung 2013 actually ako nag-start. Ang tagal ng 8 years. But I felt that for me, within 3 years, most of my issues and major problems were tackled already. It's just that parang charity, ano bang word? Charity ba? Ayaw kong sabihin charity. Pero mabait kasi yung therapist ko, and she just wanted to parang keep up the fellowship. So, tinuloy-tuloy niya. So, right now, we don't always do therapy. Minsan, catching up na lang siya. Unless I want to discuss something. So, hindi na siya formal therapy session right now.
Ah, talaga? So, para siyang kaibigan mo na?
Kaibigan na with boundaries kasi hindi pwedeng kaibigan mo yung therapist mo.
Right.
I'm thinking the same thing. Do you think this is something you'll continue pa? For the foreseeable future?
Because yeah. I think naswerte lang din ako na sobrang click kami ng therapist ko. And I guess it's also, I don't have a lot of support in my life. So I feel like she's a really big part of the support system that I have. So I would like to continue that. Definitely.
Okay. So diba you were saying earlier, parang mag-therapy kayong lahat, ganyan. So why should people go to therapy? And what if they don't really have nga a reason? Parang what if they're not naman, they haven't hit rock bottom yet, or what? Like, ano yung benefits or ano yung reasons like to go to therapy?
First of all, I guess you can't make anyone go to therapy. People have to want to go to therapy. You can't, in the same way that you can't save anybody. People can also also want to help themselves. So, and regarding yung tas mahal pa yung therapy, di ba?
Yeah.
Magkano man going rate ngayon?
Like 2,000, yeah.
Per session. I think, side note lang, there are some therapists, including my own, who offer sliding scale therapy. Sliding scale based on how much you can afford to pay.
Mm-hmm.
So, if naghahanap kayo ng therapist, just always ask, do you have a sliding scale range of kasi ang mahal ng 2,000
every
pesos
week pa. Oo.
Yung 8,000 a month. Nung time na yon, nung time na nag-therapy ako, humingi ako ng sliding scale because I couldn't afford it at the time. I left my house with nothing and everything, stuff like that. So wala talaga ako. But yun, pumayag naman yung therapist ko sa sliding scale. So I think, I'm not sure how many people in the Philippines offer that, but meron naman.
What does a sliding scale mean? Like parang packaged, or they short, parang they work with your budget, parang ganon.
They work with your budget, like what's your budget? And I guess they can also tell if you're just trying to, may mga tao din kasi na parang, ang tawag doon? Kaya naman magbayad ng lang. So they can tell also din naman. But yeah, they work within your budget. Like, what can you afford? And then, kung ganito lang, okay. Sige.
That's a great tip kasi feeling ko yun talaga yung isa sa malaking balakid sa people wanting to get therapy. It's the expense.
Oo, mahal niya talaga, no? But I guess, ang hirap din niya kasi yung trabaho. Like, isipin mo, like, makikinig ka sa problema ng tao for 8 hours a day. And some of these people, they may be suicidal. They may have gone through horrible things like sexual abuse and physical abuse, and you have to listen to that the whole day. And I don't know, it takes a special kind of person to have
the boundaries.
and the boundaries for that thing na parang after mo makinig ng ganun the whole day, okay ka na. Okay ka pa rin. So, bakit ka curious sa therapy, Ana?
Well, I think that I do have like mental health conditions na I should have addressed like a long time ago. But it's just that I always felt like I was getting okay or was becoming better. So by the time na may bandwidth na ako to like even look for a therapist or like schedule one, parang I feel okay. So hindi ko na siya tinutuloy. Parang okay naman ako. Like I don't feel like I need to talk to therapist anymore, ganyan. But going back to like my question, like why we should go to therapy, I think that for me, like I'm convinced that it's important because our actions are dictated by our mind, like on a daily basis. So can you imagine parang parang kumbaga, I think our brains also go through some sort of wear and tear and recovery process also on a daily basis. So parang just like how we need to go to a doctor for routine checkups even if like we're not feeling anything. Parang ganon din siya for your brain. So
yeah, that's a really good way of putting it. Kasi parang syempre hindi naman perfect ang mundo. When we were growing up, we probably got a lot of messages from the world, from our parents, from classmates, whoever. So, nakakatulong talaga kasi malaki yung effect niya eh. Even when you sort out an issue, it doesn't just it impacts your relationships with your partner, with your parents, with your friendships, and pati yung sa work life mo. So, yeah, so that's why I guess I really feel strongly that, everyone can benefit from therapy. Not everyone maybe like really needs it, but everyone could benefit from it. So, yeah,
Yeah, and I think that like a lot of the things that I had to correct, I only realized that they were not normal is because I had different experiences with different people. So the only time I realized na may problem pala is because I encountered different people, encountered different relationships, and doon ko nalaman na, oh my gosh, hindi pala normal magalit like all the time. So kasi you get used to your environment so much that you think it's normal. So maybe that's another reason to go to therapy. But then again, you need to have that awareness. Like, kasi what if all this time feeling mo there's nothing wrong with you. So, kaya ko lang siya na-realize is because nga of friends, of like the workplace, parang kausap ko yung boss ko, parang shit yung boss ko, ba't ang bait niya? Like, I'm not used to this like behavior. Like, pwede pala ganun. Like, it's not, parang it's okay pala. Like, you can actually engage with somebody and not be angry, or like you can actually help each other or support each other without being angry. So, akala ko normal lang yun na kailangan galit pa. Or normal lang makipag-away.
Oo. Parang pwede maging assertive na hindi
kagalit.
Oo. Tas pag hindi kasi na model sa atin yan nung bata tayo, parang wala tayong template kung paano ba siya gawin. Tas ayun, nung nakita mo sa boss mo, nagkaroon ka ng parang template. And then, na-compare mo sa sarili mong templates. Parang, bakit ganun, no?
Yeah, and I also can relate to what you said earlier about you heard yourself saying that I am disgusting, ganyan. Nangyari na rin yan sa akin eh. But it was only during the pandemic that I was aware of it. Like, oh my gosh, what am I saying?
Ang dami kasing oras, no, sa pandemic.
Oo. Parang, ba't ko to ginagawa sa sarili ko, ganyan. So, yun.
Oo, so I guess, ayun, nakakatulong yung therapy kasi parang pag aware ka sa thoughts mo, mas mabilis mo siya maka-counter. Mas short yung time period na depressed ka or, you feel stuck in bed all day. Parang it's faster, the processing is faster. Ang tawag dun? Turnover ba?
Pwede.
Faster.
I think it also helps in my workplace. My company is very progressive in that sense that they advocate for mental health, and we always have these mga webinars, and mental health is included in our HMO package. It's just that when I tried their counseling hotline before, it felt very impersonal. Kasi chat, tapos chat lang. So parang, nakikinig ba talaga to? Or naiintindihan niya ba talaga ako? So, like, I would feel more comfortable if like the therapist or the counselor was somebody that was referred to me by somebody I knew who had a good experience with it.
Anong company? Is it a local company? Ang ano naman, progressive naman ng company mo.
Yeah, it's a multinational company. So, ano siya.
Okay.
Multinational. Maganda yung culture naman ng company. So I think it helped then for me na I'm exposed to that environment. So it might not be the same for other people.
I'm just curious. Meron lang akong curious trivia-like question. Ano yung palagay ng formally educated psychologists or psychiatrists or psychotherapists sa sa Myers-Briggs? Meron ba silang opinion about that?
No, that's an interesting question because I know you're very into Myers-Briggs, right? So when I first started my therapy, I brought this book to my therapist. It was called Highly Sensitive People. Parang yung premise niya, personality psychology din yung premise niya, same as Myers-Briggs, na parang we are inborn with a certain set of traits. Tapos pinapakita ko sa kanya na tingnan mo to, parang ganito yata ako, ganyan. But since yung therapist ko is more of trauma-based yung training niya. Well, I know naman she does think, it's part of it. Part of person's psychology, yung personality. But I think hindi, at least for me, hindi niya yun naging focus. Mas naging angle niya is, you're probably this way because of all the trauma that you went through. So, for example, let's give an example. Like, highly sensitive person nga, di ba? Parang, in the book, it would say na, I'm very sensitive to loud noises, ganyan. That's the personality psychology point of view. Pero sa point of view ng therapist ko, it would, and for me, I'm more subscribed to the trauma theory, attachment theory, and I know you're familiar with that too, Gail. I'm very jumpy with loud noises because sa bahay namin dati parating may nagbabagsak ng pinto. So it makes more sense to me, at least because I have a lot of trauma. It makes more sense to parang really explore the trauma rather than just, I guess, say na ganito lang yung personality ko. For me, but that's for me. Of course, not everyone has, the same level of trauma, and yeah. So, parang basically, sinasabi ng therapist ko, siguro sensitive person ka, pero yun, siguro mas accurate sabihin na hypersensitive. Dahil sa nurture side, dahil sa trauma ko.
Gets.
Oo. So, medyo ako ngayon since matagal ko na nagte-therapy na ganong klaseng therapy, pag nag-observe ako ng tao, more of ganun yung, although, I like also to classify people, introvert ba sila or extrovert, INF ba sila or ENFP, ganyan. Mas personally, ako tinitingnan ko yung childhood nila, ano yung relationship nila with their parents, how do they talk about their mom or their dad. I kind of look at that to kind of understand people more now.
I agree din with that. I feel like yung past experience really shapes who you are as a person.
Yeah.
Myers-Briggs is just fun.
It's fun, and it helps you kind of understand people quickly. Extrovert din ako.
Nagka-click din siya, ganyan.
I mean, that's how, diba? That's how we became friends.
That's how we became friends. So we would not be shooting this podcast if it weren't for Myers-Briggs.